welcome everyone to this is to celebrate Joan McRae winning our 12 Days of the Other Side contest over Christmas, where she now gets to have a super fan conversation with two of our lovely team members from season 6, Jeff Richards and Erin Goodpipe. So now I leave you three to have a great conversation.
Well, thank you.
Hey, Joan, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I couldn't be better. Staying safe and healthy and all that. So it's been good.
Good.
Yeah, it's good to meet you, Joan. I'm really happy to hear that you made it this far. Congratulations. And I was really excited for our conversation that we were going to have. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. I bet you didn't think that an old retired accountant from PEI was going to win this contest.
You never know. You never know. We've got the people that we've been able to connect with and meet over the years who come from all walks of life that love the show and have experience of their own. It's been really, it's been eye-opening. I'm sure Erin can attest to that as well.
Oh yeah, totally. We've met so many people, just with a variety of backgrounds and coming from different situations. So it really just shows that, spirit and spirituality is just interwoven through so much diversity.
Mm-hmm. Well, I find that shows like yours that are, I guess, just not fake, really helped me overcome a lot of my fears. I had, fears of the dark and, just fears of seeing a ghost. And it just kind of helped me get over that fear. Sorry, there's a cat at the door.
Are you sure it's a cat? I'm not so sure, Joan.
Yeah, now I'm not sure because she just ran away or something ran away.
I guess we have to fly to PEI to check it out for you.
Yes. Yeah, I was really thrilled to see all the places you went to on PEI. I'm just across the water from Lennox Island. Like I can see their lights at night and everything. And so like just you guys going to places that I've seen before and been to, it was always, it was really exciting. I lived in Halifax for a year. So 5 fishermen, I knew about the haunting and such. And one of my daughters lived in Fredericton. So I've seen the church that you went to and everything. So it was just really neat to see the places and West Point Lighthouse and such. Yeah, it was a really good season for East Coast.
Yeah, well, I mean, the East Coast, because we did 2 seasons on the East Coast, and it's, every episode seemed like it just got a little bit better than the previous episode, or the locales got even more beautiful, or the stories got even more compelling as we went, which was really amazing. And you mentioned like West Point. West Point just made a list of the top 10 most haunted places in Canada, right? So like we were able to investigate some just absolutely phenomenal sort of bucket list locations on the East Coast. So it was a pleasure. We were so happy to have done it.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, I was thrilled when you did 5 fishermen because that had such a reputation around town for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just really agree with Jeff as well too. Such a beautiful area, land space, but also the communities were really amazing. We met some amazing people, and I can't say enough how much the hostess quality or the hosting quality of the East Coast was just phenomenal. Yeah, some of my most amazing moments have been on the East Coast as far as traveling. So you come from an amazing community.
And the food, oh my goodness, the food.
Oh yeah,
and hot tongue and Jig's dinner and all that wonderful stuff. It was just
maybe for you, Jeff.
So good.
I am not a seafood person, Joan, so it was quite a challenge to be, with the cast and the crew who were just loving up the lobster and the fish and trying to get this and that. And I was like, oh, I come from the Great Plains and we eat buffalo and we eat, all those animals there. So it was really tough for me.
Yeah, it's too bad to miss out on all those delicacies.
Yeah.
Okay, I have some jotted down questions, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess another thing that I really liked about the show that with the whole everybody being Indigenous that's involved is like some of the rituals that you do. I thought they were really cool, like the smudging rituals and the things to keep you safe and everything. That was something I'd never seen before on any of the ghost hunting shows before, and I just think that's really cool. What piece of equipment do you guys like using the most? I notice that you guys get a lot of good information from the Ovilus, and I've been on a few investigations where nothing the Ovilus came up with seemed to make sense, and so we didn't use it very much, but I see you guys really get good results, it seems. Is that the equipment you like the best, or?
Well, I think from my perspective, one of the nice things about the way that we work is we're not afraid to use both technical and sort of non-technical tools. So we rely heavily on intuition. We rely a lot on the guidance of our elders, and also, listening to the surroundings, listening to spirit. What are they doing as far as, are they physically affecting the environment? Are they knocking on things? But beyond that, the K2 meter, the Ovilus, our spirit boxes, all our different cameras and different things that we've been using have all been great. But I'll agree with you in that this past season, there's a lot of evidence that came through via the Ovilus that was chilling, even for us, things that were stunning. If you recall the episode where we communicated with a former employee of the Lanza Meadows site, where there were the Viking mounds and all the Viking stuff. We had a gentleman that we were communicating with by the name of Job, and his name came through very directly via the Ovilus. And that was a moment that for us as investigators was really stunning, because we had asked him for a name, and then he said, "My name is Job." And then we journeyed to the grave site. A relative of his was there to sort of confirm that. It was really, really, really stunning. So the Ovilus is great if you use it correctly. But I think, from my perspective, and Erin will probably have a different opinion, but the K2 meter and the Ovilus are two of my favorite tools, certainly.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Jeff. I actually, I'm a little more new to the team. Of course, Jeff has been around for a lot longer than I have, and in a lot of ways has been a mentor, especially using these tools. And my first draw was actually for the K2 meter, because it's so striking when you actually hold the meter in your hand and the lights are going off. But even more than that, when you can feel it within your being. And I really enjoyed the way you prefaced your question. You're sort of talking about Indigenous spirituality and the tools that we use within spirit, and that's a big part of my identity, is being able to come in there in a good way. And we have ceremonies where we begin to invite spirit to come. We begin to communicate, or at least open the line of communication so that it happens in a good way, because I believe that there is an ethic, there's a relational ethic that we have with the spiritual realm. And so those ceremonies are really opening that door, but in a good way, or at least in as good as a way as we can. So it's really striking to use your own body, your own being, your own mind, and your presence, I guess, as its own tool, as a compass. And that's something that is an amazing thing that sometimes we don't always get to catch in the episodes, right? Because it's within ourselves. And I know I've had a really great partnership with Tom and with Jeff. It's almost crazy actually how much we can like meld together. It's like I feel what Jeff's feeling. There's sort of like a relationship that goes on there. So that's been a really great tool where it's like, whoa, I'm feeling something right now. But not only that, I'm actually seeing it on the K2 meter, and then with the Ovilus. And as Jeff said, we've had some really striking moments where we are getting, exact names, exact words, and it's chilling. It absolutely is. Yeah.
Yes, I noticed that you guys definitely approach every place with so much respect and openness, and I think that probably helps the spirits feel comfortable talking to you, because they don't know you from a hole in the ground, right? Why should they talk to you, kind of thing, unless you're going to be respectful to them and such. And I noticed that you do seem to have some intuitive abilities as well as Jeff does. And I was wondering if they grew stronger over this last season, if you felt them growing with each case.
Oh, absolutely. I almost with every episode, it's just you're really getting a sense for stepping in to the spirit world. So I think it sort of demands that you're bringing your tools to light. And for me, like I said, my Indigenous identity is really huge. And what's really integral to Indigenous identity or culture is a spiritual identity. Like I said, all of our ceremonies are contingent on the worldview that there is an inherent spiritual value in everything, but that there is a spirit involved with everything, and the spirit world, it's all around us, right? So those are things that as a young person and as a child, I was really privileged enough to be adopted into traditional circles where we're constantly doing ceremony to hone our gifts spiritually, to be more in tune. But it was a really interesting turn for me to be a part of the other side family, because Jeff obviously brings so much insight into the intuitive ability there. And I really connected with Jeff, and then also Tom as well, bringing in his own Cree sort of understanding of ceremony and spirit. So yeah, I've definitely grown like a ton with each time coming into contact with spirit. You learn a little bit about yourself
and how you would feel.
Yes, exactly. And you also learn about the spirits that, the realm that they're in potentially, or their qualities. Because I think, part of this is a journey for all of us in trying to understand, well, the other side, right?
Yes.
Around. So yeah, absolutely. I've learned a lot.
I just want to say that I think our current version of the team that we brought to the table for season 6 and season 7, it's the strongest the team has ever been. And from the standpoint of, even Tom as our elder over the course of connecting with spirit throughout 6 seasons, he's grown, as much as he is already very, very well versed in what he's doing. He's always learning things. That's one of the things that he talks to me about constantly is, sort of always be striving to find out new insight, new information, and new points of perspective. And I think that Erin, what you bring to the table, what Erin has brought to the table these past 2 seasons, as far as cultural identity and as far as that intuitive gift, you talk about it growing over the course of time. Absolutely. And it's been rewarding for me from a mentor perspective to see that. So I couldn't have asked for anything better. It's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing. So clap for Erin. She's been wonderful.
And so does that mean Tom made it to season 7?
Tom joined us in season 6, and Tom is very very ill. He's doing well, but at the same time he is sort of fighting a daily battle. So I can't get too much into details there, but he is a part of season 7 in some fashion, and we also see a new elder who joins us, which you would have seen him during the live broadcast that we did on Halloween from APTN, Mr. Alan Adam. So we've got a pretty good core, great team.
Okay, I wondered if George would be back. You had George on a couple of shows.
George was amazing for the latter half of season 6. But just because of COVID and because of travel restrictions and different things like that, we spent a good portion of season 7 on the prairie, close to home. There wasn't a lot of air travel, so that's part of the reason why George wasn't able to join us in that season.
Oh, okay.
Which actually is that's a really good point too. COVID really, of course, we're in the midst of a pandemic, so that sort of altered, a little bit of how we work and where we might be. But I found it to be quite a strength to be in our home territory. I think we connect to the land and the spirit realm in a different way when we've already sort of had a relationship to the area that we're in. I mean, I know Jeff can probably attest to this way more, but you've flown all over. You guys have gone all over Canada. And so there's a little bit of a different situation that can happen when you come into a new place and you sort of don't have a lot of time to build a lot of relationship, whereas we were in our home territory. So I felt that there was a shift And I can't speak for everybody else in the team, but for me, there was a shift in how I'm connecting to spirit because, like I said, everything that I do as an Indigenous person is inherently connected to the land. So that was a really unique thing that happened this season.
Cool.
I think I agree because there's one particular site that we investigated in season 7 that a lot of the crew, and I know myself and Erin, we spent time in this place growing up. We were there many times in our youth, and to now walk in and investigate it from a paranormal perspective as adults, it was definitely a shift, definitely different. So yeah, we're at home in season 7, which is really interesting.
Nice. So where do you both live? Just out of curiosity. Which province?
Yeah, right now I'm actually living in Vancouver in British Columbia. But I've been splitting my time actually. I mean, I've lived here, but I spent a lot of the year actually in Saskatchewan. So.
Oh, okay.
I myself am in Saskatchewan with my family.
Oh, nice. You have 4 kids, isn't it?
I do. 4 little boys.
Wow.
He's busy.
That's a busy house.
Very busy house. So sometimes going off and communing with spirits in the dark is a bit of vacation from the monsters I have at home that I have to face on a daily.
So have you found that your intuitive abilities are generational? Like, did your parents have it, and are any of your kids showing it? Because usually those kind of abilities pass down.
I've heard a lot of stories, and just very recently I've been able to connect with some family members, and they've shared with me some tales of members of my family, my great grandmother, other people that are connected with me ancestrally that did have a gift of some sort, that did have some degree of intuition. And now as a kid, I see it all the time in my kids. My kids are very in touch empathically, they're very in touch with their emotions, but also the emotions of other people, but also spirit. And there are stories I could weave many tales right now with you about the things that my kids have experienced after I've come home from the other side. And sometimes these energies persist and they continue on. And then, we have to kind of deal with it at home. So, but yes, my kids do showcase some level of intuition throughout their lives, but most children do. It's just that as adults, we sort of lose touch, we lose connection with that skill set, with that gift. But some of us maintain that. So I think that kids are very, very, very in tune.
Well, that kind of leads to one of my other questions was, has anything ever followed either of you home from an investigation?
Oh, I feel like Jeff should cover this one because definitely you have a very strong relationship to a specific spirit. I mean, in my past before, I think like there's a big ethic in my home around protection and constantly sort of ridding ourselves of negative energy. So that's sort of built into the work that I do in my everyday life. But yeah, I mean, you do get remnants of things that come through and you can really feel that. And it's actually funny, right before this, I do therapy. But part of my therapy, we talk about spirituality. And so we were talking about how you feel the presence sometimes of spirit, right? So that's a really, and we were feeling that, both myself and the person who I was doing therapy with. So that was really quite interesting. So yeah, I would say that there's very much so remnants of spirit that can come through. And especially it was very interesting this last season that we filmed, there seemed to be this idea of like maybe spirits following us from episode to episode or location to location. And that was new for me to have that culmination of them continuing on. But I'll leave it to Jeff to answer more of that.
Erin hasn't been with the program for as long as I have, so she's never had the good fortune of having like a crew member haunt her couch or invite themselves over for dinner. So sometimes those people follow me. Living sense, that's happened a bunch of times. But
get out the sage.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Just leave a food offering out at the front door and they'll leave. Yeah. But what I've found is that there are certain spiritual presences that have persisted. And as a dad, sometimes that paternal connection is one that I think has caused some of our child spirits to reach out or to continue on with me. In my home here, I know I've had phenomena over the last 7 years that has been remnant of, different entities that we've communicated with throughout the show. And as Erin said, this past season, it seemed like things persisted and continued to come through. Now, the other presence that I won't necessarily give power by using the name to, but I believe that energy has continued to maintain contact throughout previous years, and over the course of time. Now, that, interestingly enough, seems to have ceased somewhat over the last little while, since October 31st. So I don't know if there was a shift that occurred with their strength, and if maybe we won over some of that energy a little bit, or what happened there. But certainly, yes, things other than our director of photography and various members of the crew do tend to sort of latch on and continue to persist.
Well, that kind of leads me to another question that I had jotted down was, do you ever check up on places that you've been before, which would lead me back to Peggy's Cove and talking to Terry there? Like, have things gone back to what they were before you filmed there, or do you ever talk to the other people and find out if things have changed after you left?
So a couple of seasons ago, we did a follow-up with some of the previous guests that we had on the show. Personally, I have been in touch with a handful of guests over the years. Some of them have become clients and students and good friends. So I do tend to kind of keep a little bit of contact with some of them. Now, as far as Terry and Peggy's Cove, myself personally, I have not been in touch with the group at Peggy's Cove, but that certainly is an idea for social media in the future. I think maybe that would be really wonderful and interesting to maybe connect via this platform with some of those guests and find out a little bit more about what happened after we left. We'll call it the other side of the other side, or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Erin,
because sometimes people say they spike, like the phenomenon will spike after an investigation. So I just thought, it'd be kind of curious and interesting to go back and talk to some of these people.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I really like Jeff's point there. A big thing for us is like relationship, right? And I think it would be a really interesting point to reinvestigate or to re-ask people, what is your experience like there now? And I think, it was really interesting too, when I was pondering what you were just saying, but, we went to the APTN building and, obviously in the live investigation, things popped up, right? But there was sort of this idea of like stirring the energy up in the spaces that we're going to. So it's an interesting point of, we're coming to these spaces, potentially opening doors, right? And then we attempt to close those doors. But also these are the spaces that spirits have chosen to be in. And we can't pretend that we are these sort of exorcists of spirit. We come there to document.
Yes.
And we can't always say that we're getting rid of these spirits, because ultimately they've made themselves, this is their home that they have made for themselves, or for whatever reason they've chosen to be here. So we sometimes have a little bit of ego when we go around to spaces and think that, we can exercise the space of the spirit, right? I think spirits, they operate in a different realm, and we have to remember that. So no, I actually, this is a great point of investigation to see, I guess collecting some data, talking to some people. How has it been since we have been there?
Yeah, that'd be really interesting.
To further Erin's point, I will just give you a little bit of insight from previous seasons. There have been sites that we have wanted to investigate, or that have been a part of the region that we are investigating, and we have been explicitly asked by some elders and by some people in the community to not go into those sites, because those spirits were at rest and they didn't want for us to kick them up or to stir them up in any way, shape, or form. And so we were explicitly asked to not investigate certain areas. And of course, we respect that 100%. It is not, that's not our place. That's not our position. And certainly I think that the idea that we are exorcists, that's that's just crazy. Obviously, that's not what we're doing.
Right.
Someone once upon a time, an elder once told me that we are never in control of spirit. You know, they will do as they do. We cannot control them. We can't control if they will communicate. We can't control when they will communicate, and we certainly can't control, you know, if they're going to be present by sort of forcing them out. I think sometimes that's sort of a misunderstanding. You know, you see in popular culture this idea of like crossing spirits over and sending them off into the light.
Into the light.
Yeah, you know, I use the analogy on this past season. If I don't like somebody, I can't be like, well, move to Paris. You know, like if I don't like a person, I can't force them to move away. If a spirit is having, if there's a negative interaction that's happening, we can ask them to leave. We can protect ourselves from their energy, but sometimes it's hard to be like, hey, get out of here, right? That's just not how it works.
Yeah. Erin, this is one of the comments that you made when you were doing the church in Fredericton. I think it was an Anglican church or something, like a big cathedral place. You had made a comment about Indigenous people and churches and your relationship with each other. And I found that really interesting. And I, of course, had never even thought of that before. So does it make you uncomfortable, or do you get unwelcome feelings, or is it just that you've such a bad relationship with religion, you know?
Yeah, no, that's a really big question. And that's something to, as an investigator, that we sort of have to be aware of ourselves, our identity, and the specific locations we're going to, because oftentimes they are historical locations. And yeah, specifically with Christ Church Cathedral there in Fredericton.
That's it, yes.
Yeah, it was a big, beautiful piece of architecture, and I could definitely admire and appreciate the history that was there. But it always is, as an Indigenous person, really tough for me to go, especially into these old sort of church religious buildings. I say that because, and this is a very layered answer, there's obviously a lot more that I could talk about, but there is a history of a damaged relationship between Indigenous people and Christianity.
Yeah.
So, like, as I said, many of my relatives had gone to residential school, for example, and have had just, terrible, terrible things done for them. From what happened with the government, with the church, and in these places. So that's an ongoing healing journey for Indigenous people, to heal that wound between those two bodies that I talked about. So yeah, no, when from going into that sort of place, a very colonial place, I really had to check in with myself around what am I bringing into this spiritual space, because it is tough for me to be in a space like that. And actually, Tom and I had a really impactful interaction there, where he shared some of his own story with me, and it was a point of healing, I think, for the both of us as Indigenous people, as investigators, going into a space like that, because we can't not go into a space like that and not acknowledge where we're coming from, especially considering there's spiritual damage that has happened between Indigenous people and between Christian groups or non-Indigenous people here in the land we call Canada. So yeah, absolutely, that's a huge topic, and one that we really explored, I believe, also in season 7, because we went to some places that, yeah, absolutely having to consider what is my relationship to this historical place that we're in, because we did go to some places that, to me, sort of brings up a lot of trauma. And collective trauma, not just individual trauma, but the collective trauma of myself as an Indigenous woman. So yeah, big question, really great question. But these are sort of the nuanced things that we don't always get to cover in the episode, right? Because there's so much that goes on in the background. So I'm really happy that we're able to have these sort of conversations with people like you.
Yeah, it's a pretty shameful part of our past, that's for sure. And yes, it was just surprising. It's like, oh yeah, I never even thought about how you would feel going into a church, so it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, totally.
Jeff, do you feel the same way?
100%. Yeah. I think there are so many places that we were able to visit that if you think about the deep personal impact that the history has had on you, either ancestrally or, even just as far as, perhaps some of our crew members or other people who might be working with the program, who might even harbor, a little bit of shame towards what was done with regards to residential schools and the impact of religion on First Nations people. There's a lot of baggage to unpack there sometimes, and that can sometimes affect you in unexpected ways. So, I agree with Erin. You have to really check what you're bringing into that spiritual space. And there are many places we investigated this past season that were very colonial and were very hard to, try to find that Indigenous heartbeat, as an Indigenous program, and one that looks at the spirit world from that perspective. We had to kind of consider what it was that we were seeking in these spaces. We're trying to connect with spirit, but at the same time, we're doing it from a very certain cultural perspective that's important. So we have to understand the impact of that and how these spaces may actually impact in a negative way our investigation. You think of it in terms of us going into a space where there typically were not, Indigenous people and brown people and people of different ethnicities and backgrounds, or women who were permitted into some of these spaces. And then we're coming in as investigators and we're trying to connect. Sometimes that leads to very uncertain circumstances.
Yeah, I suppose too, your intention can contaminate your whole investigation. I think your intention is a big thing, makes a big difference.
Oh, absolutely, Joan. And I just adding on to that point that Jeff was talking about, there, we went to some very colonial spaces. And so there were some really frank discussions that I had to have with myself and with our team members to say, am I in a space right now where I can actually come into this investigation and not contaminate, the space that we're opening up, right? Because of course, if this is a colonial space, there might not be spirits that are going to feel really great in talking to me. But I also found it really interesting too, that at times, not that we're necessarily always asking these spirits that are coming through, okay, what's your ethnicity? But I found it really interesting that, oftentimes we weren't maybe getting in touch with something that wasn't maybe Indigenous, right? And at times I felt like there was like pieces of that, right? And definitely for sure on the show, we have had that. But there seems to be sort of a difference, and I've had sort of personal conversations with Jeff about that, but it's something to know. And also too, I find that, the positive part about, all the strife that this could bring up as an Indigenous person is that, we're doing some really revolutionary work by going into some of these spaces. Even this past season, we had the opportunity to go into places where ceremony wasn't really allowed. So this has been first time that ceremony had been allowed in this place or places. So really sort of being a light and bringing in indigenization, right? And indigenization in a way that's spiritual, right? The invisible world around us that needs healing as well. So I thought that was really huge in the work that we're doing in some of these historical spaces that we're doing, is that we're actually doing, I'm not really a fan of the word reconciliation right now, and there's a lot of layers there, but in a way we're sort of coming in there and bringing in the truth and standing firm in, our Indigenous identity, in our ways and practices of knowing and being able to go in there and sort of maybe bringing healing. So that was really big for me last season and this season.
Oh, neat. Oh, Annelise has shown up. Oh
no, she's gonna cut us off. I've got a question for Joan before we go.
Okay.
One
Ask
more.
Joan. Yep.
Joan.
Yes.
What was your favorite episode you've seen so far?
I really like the Lanso Meadows one. That I think that was probably one of my favorites, because what happened was so unexpected, but it was just all so confirmed by your equipment and by the people there, and it was just so, I don't know, so healing and feel good, and just such proof that everything is true, and your techniques worked. And I don't know, I just thought it was just an exciting, wonderful episode.
We had a time for Job out in Newfoundland. Yes. Oh, I'll never forget it.
That was so good. That was my favorite, I think, so far.
Well, I just can't thank all of you enough for this conversation. I've been the fly on the wall in the background.
Oh,
No, it's a good thing, Joan. We've done a number of these conversations, and I would say your questions were some of the most interesting, and the conversation has been just fantastic. I loved every bit of it. So
yeah, I would love to keep chatting, but yeah, I know everyone's busy.
Well, it's getting late there, isn't it, Joan?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 25 to 8.
Joan, if you found what Erin was saying really impactful, and I feel as a very settler white person, a great honor to be a part of this show. One of the first moments that I had on the social media and digital side was a conversation that happened there after the last episode of season 3. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. It was in Leastock, Saskatchewan, where the team went to the site of a residential school. And
oh no, I haven't seen that one. That one I would remember.
You can watch it with your subscription for APTN Lumi.
I know. Now I'm catching up on the ones I missed before.
Unfortunately, they don't have the first 2 seasons, but they do have season 3. So you should definitely grab that.
I will.
And it was the conversation, I think for many, we have obviously a very strong Indigenous audience, but we also have a settler audience who loves the paranormal. And for some of them, it was their first introduction to the concept of residential schools, as amazing as that is. So it was a great honor to be able to help shepherd that conversation in some ways and provide resources for people so that they could educate themselves. So definitely you should check out episode 13 of season 3.
I will. Tomorrow.
Excellent. And Jeff, I'm starting to write a pitch for the other side of the other side. So we'll see what we can do.
All right. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So thank you all 3 of you very, very much. And we'll try and get this up on our social and stuff in the next few days. And just thank you so much for your time and your questions and your thoughtful questions and thoughtful answers. Really appreciated.
I appreciate everybody's time. It was really good. It went too fast.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching, Joan.
Yes,
for being such a great fan and for nailing all of those questions.
Oh well, it's an easy show to watch.
That's
excellent.
Great question.
Well, hopefully you'll be down east again sometime, and I'll just run into you accidentally on the street.
That would be nice. That would be nice. All right. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Wear a mask.
Yes, thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.